Okay, Baron, let's do this. Welcome. Today we will talk about the impact of AI and the recruitment tech stack. And we've been implementing recruitment software at the largest enterprises in the past 10 years together. And I'm curious to your take. Can you share why you believe AI will drive a renewed way recruiters are interfacing with the technology?
Yeah, yeah, renewed and I believe fundamentally different. Well, there's a lot of talk about AI and how it will basically impact every industry out there. And I think to predict that impact, maybe it's good just to zoom out a little bit and look at why they call AI really a fundamental revolution, not just an incremental step forward, but really a new paradigm that we enter. And you have to look back a little bit to realize what's happening today. It's been, I think, 6 decades ago that we invented the computers, and over time we have improved the way we interact with computers. So when the first computers were invented, coding, creating programs was not something you did with a keyboard. It was literally putting metal rings into a machine that represents ones and zeros, and that was programming. And back in the days, well, that's also where the word bug comes from. Flies could go into that machine, move the rings a little bit, and everything would break down. Well, we don't put rings into machines anymore. We invented a keyboard, right, to type code. We invented a screen so we could look at what was happening inside of the machine instead of printing everything on these small pieces of paper. But fundamentally, nothing changed in the sense that the computer itself stayed the same. So every step forward that we took was us humans moving closer to the computer and creating new ways to interact with this machine that stayed in essence the same over the last 6 decades. Well, that changed with the arrival of AI. For the first time, it's possible to interact with the machine in a way that we normally interact with other human beings. So imagine for 6 decades, we were working with keyboards, with mouses. We had to write code. If we had to store something, for example, an applicant tracking system, we had to type every data field exactly correct because else it wouldn't work. And now, for the first time, we are capable not to work in the computer or on the computer. We are capable of working with the computer through collaboration. So collaboration between man and machine. And well, if you look at the world through that perspective, working together with a machine, and then look at recruitment, yeah, then you can imagine that everything will change. And yeah, we've been talking a lot about this. So maybe also your take. We're going to collaborate with machines in recruitment. Yeah, what do you think it will look like?
Well, I think what you just described is that it's almost a paradigm shift. Do we look at this case recruitment software? Should it serve a human process, or can we literally say, "Help me to maybe come up with your own processes or ideas"? So in this case, we currently use. Well, let's look at the recruitment tech stack. It's a CRM. It's an ATS system. Usually, you work with other like a lot of tools to help you in sourcing, help you in talent pooling, but all those tools are basically built to optimize an existing workflow. I think what the difference now is that we can really look at AI as software that can literally collaborate with you. And maybe if you give this AI access to the same type of information that you have as a human, um, we get like this whole new like way of collaborating with technology that almost feels like you work in synergy with it, right?
Exactly. You don't execute tasks yourself in the software. You ask the software to execute tasks for you. And for the first time, those tasks are not limited to calculation. It can be creative work. It can be admin work. It can be work that normally could only be done by a human. And now it can be done independently, supervised by a human.
Yeah.
And that impacts everything.
Yeah, but if we look at the current tech stack, all those software. Well, we've built a recruitment technology company ourselves, and we were implementing high volume hiring technology at large enterprises. But what we were basically doing was we were implementing software to optimize an existing workflow. Can you make the distinguish? Can you distinguish that? Like, what is a in this case, what does true synergy with an AI type of collaboration technology mean compared to workflow optimization?
In a workflow, you optimize a standardized process. So, for example, an application process, let's make it concrete. In an application process, you force the applicant to take predefined steps, leaving predefined data in a predefined way. And if you do that exactly the way you were supposed to do it, then it works. That's a strict workflow. In the new paradigm, it can be completely in flux. It can be completely fluid. So the way the applicant start to interact with with your company in search for a job, it can be different for every applicant every time, tailored to the needs of that specific job or that specific applicant. And why that is possible is because the machine, that thing that was literally stupid until a few years ago, can now for each applicant decide, maybe this is a question that I should ask. Maybe this is information that I should provide, tailored to the needs of that specific process. So looking at the specific case instead of the generic, factory that recruitment sometimes became.
Yeah, I think the difference is that if you start building a technology company in recruiting, you look at an existing business process, and then you think, hey, how can technology improve this existing business process? And then we almost look always at speed and cost. So
Yeah,
I think what it is today, if you look at, well, let's look at our own platform, which is literally built to collaborate with AI. I think we're not trying to just optimize an existing business process. We're trying to fundamentally improve the way technology and humans interact. And the question we will have then, I think the question every recruiter or every recruiting manager should ask themselves today is, hey, if you literally look at tasks that my team is executing, the question is, what should the human do and what should, in this case, the AI do? So it's not, is there a tech that can like incrementally improve a small step in his workflow, but it's almost a complete redefinition of how do you distribute work between humans and technology.
completely. And that's a new paradigm. And the cool thing is, it will still impact cost. It will still impact speed. But in this
Heavily.
scenario, and I mean, we've been building HR tech for over a decade now, but in this scenario, there is no downside. There is nothing that you make more rigid. It's not forcing recruiters in yet another process. It's not limiting a global organizations to three standard ways of working because that's how your ATS or HRS is set up. So
Yeah.
no, still the same benefits, but because you look through this new paradigm, there's no downside.
No. Is there what is the so there's no downside, but you still still think there's kind of a fear living within companies, and is the I think it's the fear of the unknown. But do you understand that as well?
Yes, because it's new and we all hear the stories in the media. So there is fear because, in general, there is often fear for change. But if you dive deeper, fear for change is often the result of fear of losing control, losing freedom, losing the power to steer your work in the way you want to do it. And that's not the case with AI. I mean, and we see that now if we onboard customers, yeah, it's after one day, it removes the tasks that you don't like and it gives you time to do the things that you want to do. So I think there is that fear. That's why it's always wise to take baby steps forward. Explore, discover, and then take the next step. But what I see is that the fear is yeah, it goes away pretty fast.
Yeah, because it's so obvious. That's to me like it's almost like well, if you use ChatGPT for the first time and you optimize text with it, or you're going to you do some simple research, um, or you start to try to create a poem. If you do that a few times, um, it feels like you almost feel stupid if you would not use it for other cases. And I feel obviously implementing it in business is much more difficult and much more risky. Um, but I do think it's much more obvious because the benefits are so extremely high.
The what you say is correct. Eh? It takes more effort to implement it really well in a small use case, like within recruitment, compared to just creating an apple pie recipe or a poem on ChatGPT. But the benefit is because what you want AI to accomplish, it's so much easier to train AI to be perfect at it. Um, because that's what you see as well. Maybe I never write poems, so I don't know. But you can imagine that maybe you're not completely happy with the
You
result.
make Sinterklaas poems, huh?
Sinterklaas, yeah, and I make apple pie recipes.
Okay.
But in recruitment, it needs to be perfect, and that's why you need to have tailored AI. I mean, the Carve AI can't write Sinterklaas poets, um,
No.
but it can write candidate profiles pretty awesome. Yeah.
Okay, Baron, thanks for this breakdown. So I think the conclusion is the question was how will AI change the way how will AI change the recruitment technology stack? And I think the conclusion is that our belief is that we will move from workflow automation technology towards collaborative systems where human and AI work in sync with each other to literally redefine the workday of a recruiting team.
Yes, and imagine that we're going to create something that recruiters actually love to use.
Okay, thanks, Barend.